So we had what lens, we had right structure, joke structure, set list, practice in a mirror. What was five? Bring your shit shoes.
Five, well, but part of it, your shit shoes. I got my shit shoes in my. It's like they're like bowling shoes. You have a
My
separate bag
shit, my
for it.
set list.
What's that bag for? Those are my shit shoes. I got the bottom third of a pair of pants. I staple onto my other pants, so it looks like a whole different guy in there. Whole different guy making that mess.
Greetings, everyone. Come on in and have a seat up front for the Funny Muscle Podcast. If you're here, then you're looking to learn how to create laughs like a pro. So please help me welcome to the stage your co-host to help you do that, economics professor and open micer Chris Stifler and comedian turned author Mike Lucas.
So today, Mike, I wanted to pick your brain as far as what you tell people that are trying to do their first five, their first stand-up set. What's some advice you'd give the new comic?
Yeah, that's one of the things I recommended to my client. One of the things that would really help you out in the beginning is to do what you do, Chris, which is, watch a lot of other comedians and then break down their bits using the humor blueprint, and then try to identify the different heightening devices. So I think until you realize that that's the muscle, that's the thing you got to get good at. You got to get it good at spotting like how to misdirect people, and then you got to get good at heightening the surprising results. So you can't just surprise them with the results. You have to surprise them and heighten it. And it's funny how organic it is for so many of us comedians to just do that. And then you can reverse engineer it and tell us what it is, and dissect the frog, so to speak. It's a lot easier sometimes to watch and observe other people. And that's one of the biggest recommendations I would have for a new comedian is to watch comedy. You got to watch a lot of comedy. It's like if you're going to be a writer, you got to read a lot of books. You just got to read.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're either going to repeat what other people have already done, or you're going to not understand the higher level choices that you can make. And then your stuff comes across as sort of amateurish, or at least newbie-ish.
So is that the first piece of advice you give a person who's trying to their first five, their first stand-up five, is make sure you have misdirection in your set?
The first advice I always give, I like, at least in as far as that article goes, I know the one on this website, which is first 10 things a new comic needs to do. The first thing is to figure out what your lens is. Like, that to me is if you don't know what your lens is, at least, and again, you don't have to stick to it. It can always change. You can evolve anytime, but you got to have something. You got to start with something. Who am I? What am I? Otherwise you're just a corner quipper. Dogs are funny. Dogs are crazy. Okay, they maybe, but why are they crazy to you? Why is a dog nutty to you? And then that tells us about who you are, not just about how funny dogs are. And that's what I was talking to one of my clients about recently, was that the job of the comedian is to get people to laugh. Of course, that's the basic job. But there's also another level to it. If you want to get really good and be a professional, you're also getting them to think about who you are and how you look at life. And so that when they go through their life, they can take that with them, and they can have a little mini you on their shoulder. And when they go through that same struggle, or like their dog pisses on the carpet, they go, oh, like that Lucas bit where he talks about the dog, with a scrub brush. Come here, Fido, get that scrub brush out, and then they're doing my bit or whatever. Not that I have a bit like that, but because, and then now that moment is funny because Mike Lucas told them that there's a different way to look at it, And so to me, that's another job of a comedian as you get more advanced in it, is your job is to bring them a new lens to look at life through, so that they can vicariously have that wherever they go through struggling. But then, yeah, the misdirection thing, that's a good piece of advice too. But that, again, that's part of what I say. The number two entry on that article, this is from funnymuscle.com. It's the first 10 things a new stand-up comic needs to do. And the second one I have is learn how to write a joke and then write some. And that's part of the misdirection. That's part of that piece of advice, which is you need to understand, what are you doing to make these strangers laugh? You're doing this premise, setup, and punchline. Well, what is that? My blueprint breaks it down a little further, but once you have a lens, you need to know how do I set up a premise? How do I give a premise, set up a normal outcome and then misdirect them into somewhere else.
So lens is how you see the porthole through which you see the world.
Right.
Joke structure, write some jokes. What's the next piece of advice that you tell first
The
timer?
third one I have down there is create a set list of your jokes. And that seems pretty, pretty obvious and self-explanatory, but when you're first starting out, you might not understand how to organize what you have to say. And when you get more experienced in doing it, your set list looks differently. So the first when you first go up, you are just trying to remember the jokes. You're doing 5 minutes, so you got maybe 5 minutes of bits written down there. And then when you get a little bit more sophisticated in how you're doing it, some of those bits start to work together. So now instead of dog pee brush bit, now I have dog owner, and dog owner has 5 jokes within it. But now on my set list, it just says dog owner, and I know that my dog stuff goes up top or whatever. So your set list is basically a movable, like a morphable list of how you're going to deliver your material. And then, well, you've been like what how do you put your set list together?
Yeah, I use an index card. And so I have like plain PDA, I have marijuana, 420 joke, I have what else do I have? Signaling theory, twin lawyer Rolex bit.
I
I
love
have
that. One of the fun parts of doing stand up, I remember finding someone's set list at the back of the room who, like, someone left their set list, and like going through that list of what you just said right there would be very funny, to like marijuana, PDA plane, like, and if you know the jokes, it's fine, but like it means nothing to me when you say those things, but to you it means everything.
oh,
Like
it's the whole yeah, it's my whole 3 minutes of material, and I know the punchlines and the tags and the
yeah. So a set list is a very personal trigger to get you to remember how this goes for that
and
set.
that's why you said the bit name. The bit name is the first thing on the blueprint. Is the plain PDA is my bit name, and that triggers my whole 2 minutes worth of material. But it's not like I've seen people walk up on stage with a whole composition notebook, and they have pages of actual 100% script.
Yeah.
That's not a set list.
No, that's your joke notebook. Tom Rhodes is notorious note taker writer. I don't know if you know Tom, but Tom's which is a brilliant comedian, and he's an excellent writer, and he's been around forever, and he's a friend of mine from way back. And Tom has always, since I've known him, carried a notebook, and he has meticulous handwriting, and he does what you're saying. He writes out these jokes, and because he's been doing it so long, he knows exactly how he says things and how he wants to say it. And so I think that's important for him.
But that's not your set list. That's not what you take on stage. You don't read your script from a composition notebook when you're doing your 5. You use your notebook to then memorize, develop, and understand your bit. And then the bit name is your 2 minutes worth of material.
Yeah, and I'll bet people like Tom Rhodes has a set list that he also puts together, because he does different, so like he's a pro, so he'll sometimes do 45 or 50 minutes on stage. He might do an hour. Sometimes he might do a 10 or 15-minute set. So he puts together a set list depending on his time. So your set list is like sort of that night dependent. Like you don't always necessarily have the same set list. So sometimes it's good before your set to go through a set list and rewrite it for yourself, because that also helps you order what you're about to do, especially when you're new at it. When you're brand new, sometimes your bits don't make sense together yet. But as you write this new set list every time you go up, you start to begin to see them in bigger chunks.
Yeah, and then you start to see like toppers, and you see an extra tag, and then you see like, oh, that could be a callback to that earlier bit that I've done with the dog poop. Okay, so set list. So you got lens, no joke structure. Once you write some jokes, have a set list on like a note card that you're going to take with you for your first 5.
Yeah, and then you start practicing. You start practicing. That's the fourth one. You start delivering your jokes in front of a mirror. Before you get on a stage, you just practice your set in front of a mirror. Practice it in front of a dog. Practice it, in front of a kid. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Hey, you want to hear my dick jokes? I'm going to talk to my nephew real quick. Another room. No one needs to be in there. He's not laughing at all. Jesus, this is going right over his head. Literally, he's like 3 feet tall. So you want to really figure out how to intimidate yourself before you go on stage, so you can get a taste of what it feels like to be nervous on stage. Stand in front of a mirror and look yourself in the eyes and try to do your set just without unlocking your eyes from yourself. It's oddly intimidating to do that.
But then you also like get used to that awkward feeling in your stomach where like, it's the fight or flight, like evolutionary, if there was a saber-toothed tiger in the room, that makes sense for the fear, flee or fight or flee or whatever. But
Right.
you'll feel the same thing,
Fight
but
or
you don't
flight.
need to flee. You just need to be able to sit with it and you kind of like basically absorb the anxiousness or sit with the
Well,
uncomfortable.
you can either try to battle it with, and to make it go away, and then that's where people get in trouble. Like that's where, when I say people, I mean me. That's where you start drinking, you start doing
Yeah.
drugs, you start trying to medicate that feeling away so that it's not there, and you think that it's not there anymore because you're buzzed or you're high or whatever, but it's still there. So you're really not doing yourself any favors, because now you're buzzed and you're trying to deliver your material, and that's a lot harder. And I would never recommend that. I think you should be as sober as you can manage. And I'm not saying, anyone that drinks a beer before they go on stage is committing a mortal sin. And it's nothing like that at all. Like plenty of people are buzzed and they're fine. You can't even tell. But I'm saying a better way to go about it, and especially in the beginning, is to begin to realize that what you're doing as a stand-up is one of the scariest, nerve-wracking things you can do as a human. To stand in front of a group of strangers and talk is hard enough. To stand in front of a group of strangers and say, I'm going to make you laugh, so much so that it's going to be worth paying money for it to happen. So every one of them in that room has made someone else laugh before, right? A family member, a kid, a husband or a spouse, somebody. So they've all done what you say you're going to do. So you have to say, I'm going to do it so much better than you can do it, that you're not going to think twice about having paid me for that pleasure. So you have to understand right off the bat, that's nervous. You're going to feel nervous about saying I can do that. So you have to just begin to get comfortable with that feeling. It's hard. That every set I ever did, I had to take a shit right beforehand. I'm not kidding. I mean, I don't say that to be gross. And the challenge of that is, if the green room doesn't have its own bathroom, now you're going into the public bathroom where all the audience is. So you got to always bring a secondary pair of shoes, so that whenever you're in there taking your shit, you're wearing your shit shoes. So they don't know that, when you go up on stage, you're like, hey, I recognize those shoes. That's the guy who was in stall 4 making that awful smell right before the show. You, boo.
Is that a joke, or was that a joke, or did you really have shit shoes?
That's just a joke. I'm just being funny.
Oh, okay.
But there's a part of me that now is thinking to myself, well, that's a damn good idea. I remember there was a club, it's still a club, Wiley's in Dayton, Ohio. And there's the green room there doesn't have a bathroom. So if you have to go to the bathroom before the show, there's like 2 stalls that everyone gets to use. And so you're trying to time it so that there's nobody in the bathroom while you're going. And then I often thought about that. Like I tuck my shoes under the bowl so no one can see who's in there. Yeah. Brown shoes, black pants. I know you, sir. You're offensive.
I think even the data says that, like pros, whether pro athletes or pro musicians, they get nervous as well. They just know how to harness the nervous energy to motivate them. I like your advice of, you're going to be nervous no matter what. Everyone's nervous. It's just interpreting that nervousness to your benefit, not trying to medicate it away, like you're saying.
Yeah, that was a mistake I made, especially early on. I thought that I didn't like that feeling, and so I thought I could do the thing without the feeling. And you can't. You just can't. It's a nerve-wracking thing, and you just got to accept it. And like you said, get over it. You got to get over it and it's like a judo move. You take the force of that ickiness and move it to your advantage and push it towards higher energy on stage, or like more attentive moments, because you're so like you're in the moment, kind of a thing. And as a comedian, you have to be really present, and so that's one way you can rechannel that. But that's hard, and that's why you have to go up over and over and over again, because you would never guess that Jim Gaffigan is nervous, and chances are his nervousness is a different kind of nervousness than yours or mine might be. Jim Gaffigan's not nervous that he's going to forget his line, but there's a general sense of nerves where he's like, all these people just paid $100 a piece to see me. There's 20,000 of them, and I need to deliver to a level that makes them happy, the club venue happy, and me happy as a professional. All of that has to feel good by the end of it. And I don't know if I can do that every time. Oh crap, there's times I haven't done that. This is nerve-wracking, you know. So there's that level that he's facing. And I'm not speaking on behalf of Jim Gaffigan. I don't know how he feels. He might be drunk as hell for every set. No, I'm just kidding. I can't imagine. But I'm saying though that, yeah, I'm guessing he feels it, and he just channels it differently, and he has different things that he's nervous about. But I think that it's a nerve-wracking thing. Jerry Seinfeld talks about it all the time, and I bet he's nervous. I mean, he came back. That dude, talk about ballsy. Like he didn't have to come back at all, and he came back because he loves it so much, and he went through those nerves all over again. And he talks about that in some of his specials about his comeback. I was very nervous about doing this, but he still did it. And when you watch him on there, he doesn't look nervous. You don't know how he's feeling, but you know, he's not like, you know, he's not like shaking or anything. But it's interesting that someone is a professional, like he's at the top of the game, and he still feels nerves. So you got to just get used to that. And that's why when you're first starting out, the more time you can repeat your set out loud, the better. And then the reason why I recommend the mirror is because it's just someone's eyes looking at you that force you to really be in that moment and see if you can get it out without pausing, without forgetting. Make sure you include all of it, and to make sure that when you're in the actual club, you're looking at their eyes. So you're not nervous about eye contact.
So we had lens, we had right structure, joke structure, set list, practice in a mirror. What was 5? Bring your shit shoes.
Five, well, but part of it, your shit shoes. I got my shit shoes in they're like bowling shoes. You have a separate bag.
My set list.
What's that bag for? Those are my shit shoes. I got the bottom third of a pair of pants. I staple onto my other pants. So it looks like a whole different guy in there. Whole different guy making that mess. But number 5 is, I say, you know, you got to pick your stage look. So what do you want to look like when you go out there? And I think that's important. And I think that we don't talk about it that much because, you know, clothing is so personal. But when you are going to go up on stage, like one of my clients that I work with, I had him. One of my suggestions was like, wear a jacket. You're a jacket guy. You look like a jacket. He's kind of like a Ryan Gosling guy. He's kind of like a good looking guy, but he's like a smart ass kind of a thing. And you know, when he is in his jacket, he presents a different image than when he's like in a t-shirt or he's you know, so but a jacket doesn't work for everybody, you know. So you have to figure out what's your lens and what's the best look for your lens, and find, you know, 3 or 4 outfits that lend themselves to that look. You know, for me, I was kind of goofy and I had this bald head. So I looked good in a suit. Suit would work well for me. A jacket with no tie and just a shirt, you know, kind of a thing, but more sports, you know, than you know, real expensive dress up. But I didn't figure that out till much later in my career, and I think it hurt me in a lot of ways. You know, like when you're doing auditions and stuff like that, when you walk up on stage, you are giving everybody a clue as to who you are without saying a word. Your clothing and how you look, you know, all indicate that to them. Your body posture, how you know, all that kind of stuff.
I've noticed that when I was doing those sets at like a mountain town, because a mountain town has a foot of snow outside. So I'm wearing a ski cap and a, you know, sweatshirt, which is way different than when I wear the nice jeans, corduroy blazer, and I had to play the professor kind of persona.
Now, I would argue that you need to bring that outfit with you no matter where you go, and then find the mountain town version of that outfit, but don't change that look, because you might then begin to battle something that you're not really used to, which is, they don't get who I am right away. They think I'm with something different, because you might look different in that other outfit, and your jokes might not come across the same way because you're a professor, like that. Like a lot of your jokes are, you know, based on the fact that you're a professor of economics. So if I don't buy that that's true about you, you know, it's like when you see one of your teachers at a store and they're wearing a weird outfit. You're like, you can't be my teacher. That's not who you look like right now. You look like someone's mom. Ew, you know, or whatever. Or you see your principal.
Funny.
at a baseball game. And you're like, oh, dude, you're wearing a hat. Oh no, you should have me a suit coat on and a tie. You're the principal, for God's sake. And he's like, no, I'm with my kids, and we're watching softball. It's like, no, it doesn't make sense. So like if that works in that, like of course it's going to work that way when you're a stand-up and you go up in front of everybody.
It seems obvious, but some I think probably overlooked by most people.
As important, yeah. Now I gotta say, like the idea that Mike Lucas is giving anyone advice on wardrobe is kind of its own joke. If anyone knows me and knows how I dress and my taste in clothes, I'm horrible. So, but the point still remains that you're, as a comedian, setting the audience up to expect a certain thing, and your clothes are one way to do that. And then the number 6, the next thing I say, is if you got this far, you know what you look like. You've got you some jokes prepared, and you've read some books about it, and you practice in front of the mirror, and got your set list already. It's time to have the balls to take it up on stage. And so that's the number 6, is you got to search for the comedy clubs and the open mics in your town and what's closest to you. And then you begin to show up to those. You don't have to perform when you first go there. That's another thing. Like, just go check it out. Just go sit in the room
Scout.
without the nerves of having to go up, and just see what it feels like to be there.
A lot of times you'll see how bad the open mics are, and you're like, well, that gives me a lot of confidence to go up there because those 5 just bombed for half an hour.
Right. And they seem fine afterwards. They don't seem like their whole life is ended, and I think I could do better than that. I killed in front of my mirror. I can do way better than that than these guys. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good point, Chris. That, you're watching other people. Sometimes you glorify how great everyone else is and how sucky you are. And then you go to one of those open mics and you sit there and you watch 30 comics in a row, and you're like, man, there's like 6 of those guys that are and women that are really good, and the rest of them are just like me, just trying real hard and not quite getting it yet. So it definitely helps you to put that into perspective. And I'd say that your job is then to figure out who books that room. So open mics are usually booked not by the club owner or by the club booker, but sometimes by a local comic. So you have to get to know them. You got to let them see what you're capable of. Sometimes it is a club owner, sometimes it's a club booker. So then you have to just begin to figure that information out, and you got to collect 2 or 3 or 4 sets that you can do during the course of a week, so you can start getting a schedule. So now you're going to want to have, in 1 week, you're going to try, if you could, do 20 sets. Like in New York City, there's enough clubs where you can go around and do sets all the time. And you can do 3 or 4 sets a night if you're really good and you're really accepted in all those clubs. Now, a new comedian can't do that. Even an experienced comedian who's new to New York can't do that. But the point is, wherever you're at, there's a bunch of different stages that you can hit as many of those as possible. If you have to bomb at first on all of them, that's okay, man. You're not getting paid. You're learning. You're new. So tape every set. That's another new comedians always have to do. I don't know if that's on this one or if that's on the mistake. Yeah. But whenever you go on stage, that's on the another article I wrote, which is the top 10 mistakes new comedians make. And one of the mistakes is that they don't record their set. So when you're looking for new places, always record the you find a place to put your recorder, and so that way you have something to work on when you're not on stage. And then number 7, that's after you've figured out the different areas, that's the sign up for the open mic, man. Put your money where your mouth is, and just go up there and get used to it. Get used to the rhythm of, it's Tuesday, we go to Bunchers on Broadway Street, and Bunchers has an open mic, and you got to show up at 6 p.m. for the 8 o'clock show. So you get on the list and you got to sign up on the thing, and then they put the set list together, or they put the order together, and then you got to figure out where you're at, and just get used to that, get used to doing that, and so it's not that big a deal. Number 8 is record every set and listen afterwards.
That's I thought, okay, yeah.
I did put that in there. Yeah, because that's the other important thing. Like, if you don't have a recording of your set, when I mean, maybe when you're like Jim Gaffigan, you don't, you have, the place that you're performing at records your set for you, because he's at that level. But the rest of us, record every set. Use your cell phone, use a tape recorder, and listen to it afterwards, and break it down. Find out where you got laughs. Find out where you didn't get laughs. Find out where you got laughs that you weren't expecting laughs. Have you ever had that happen where
A
you
lot, yeah. Where I think that flows into like the advice I think is pause more. I think a lot of new comics will step on their own laughs because they memorized it in a mirror and they didn't give the audience time to laugh or get the joke, then laugh.
that's one of the mistakes I have in that other list, which is,
Okay.
the idea that yeah, you need to train them when to laugh, and then you need to let them have that moment.
It can be nervous too because you kind of feel like you need to hurry up or like as a new
Yes.
teacher, like I first got nervous because like when I was writing notes on the board, and I was like, oh my God, it's taking too long to write these notes on the board. But the students are copying the notes down too. It's not like they're like waiting to like you gotta realize like you don't need to be nervous and rush through that stuff.
Yeah.
You need to soak it in. And a lot of times you'll get an extra laugh because you allowed them a chance to get the joke.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the nerves. The nerves do a lot of crazy things to you, and that's why you need to really get used to them, because they'll make you rush, and now all of a sudden the crowd didn't get a chance to laugh when they should have, and then you'll think that the joke's bad because they didn't laugh, and it's like, no, you didn't give them a chance to laugh, man. They wanted to laugh, or you didn't put the punchline word at the end, and you put it in the
That's a
middle.
big one.
Now that then you kept trickling words after the funny word, and now they're like they're confused, so. And then number 9, I have find a writing partner. That's like comedians are notoriously solo instruments. We're really kind of, a lot of us are loners. A lot of us, you know, we prefer ourselves to the world, kind of a thing. And then there's other comics that are really group oriented, and there's a lot of them that are both. You're group oriented, and then you need like recovery time afterwards because you were with other
Yeah.
people for so long. Oh my
Yeah.
God, they were sucking the
The recharge
life out of
battery.
me, right? And yeah, you recharge that, and so, but a writing partner is great because you're gonna miss ideas and tags and moments, and when you have a writing partner and you run things by each other, it's so much easier for me to tag your bit than to tag my own bit. When I watch, your stuff, like, and I see that it's easy for me to just think, oh, well, try this or try this or try that. And it didn't even occur to you. But if you were watching my set, things would occur to you that I could do that didn't occur to me because I'm inside of it. So a writing partner,
Mhm.
and a writing partner isn't like we're going to write bits together and we're going to, be on stage together. It's more like somebody whose humor is similar to yours that is also hungry to do this, and then you can have moments where you get together and then you write together, like you say, hey, I've got 6 bits I'm working on, what do you think of these? And then you trust this person to not steal them from you, but to give you funny moments. Hey, those are great bits, they're mine now. Those are great bits when I do them. So you that's where someone goes, hey man, that bit you just did was, no, it was Ollie Joe Prater. Someone said, hey man, that you just did da da da's bit. Yeah, but ain't it much funnier when I do it? Like, he didn't even care. But yeah, but finding a writing partner you can trust is a nice thing, and it's not always possible, but it sure makes the journey a lot more fun and easier. Not
Oh
easier, but
yeah. Much
go
different.
smoother. And then the last one is I added, simply for selfish reasons, find a coach to guide you. Well, I'm a coach, so I'm just saying it's kind of nice to put a little pitch in at the end for yourself. But it's true though, of a coach or a mentor or somebody who knows more about the thing than you do, because a writing partner might you might not be able to find a writing partner who's way better than you, because they don't want to be with somebody who's less better than them. They want to be with someone who's equally as talented as they are. So you might have to find a coach or a mentor that you can talk to for advice that you're not going to be a writing partner with. So that's a really important thing, because it'll save you a ton of time to have somebody who knows what they're doing guide you that way.
Some of these are like small, easier ones to do, but like write jokes seems like the big like be funny. It seems like a harder one to.
Yeah, to wear a nice jacket
Yeah.
and bring shit shoes. Yeah, it's true. Like the hardest part of this job, literally making strangers laugh and then doing that consistently. And if you don't know how to do that, don't worry about any of these other 9 suggestions. Like, that's a huge one. So the great thing is at this point in 2024, there's at least a dozen good books on how to do this and on different aspects of the comedy. Like my books teach you literally how to write a joke and how to create your persona to write the joke. But there's other books that teach you how to be a comedian, like how to tour and how to book gigs and that kind of stuff. My books don't cover that part of it, but there's other books that do. So, you know, it's like any, like get a library of books for yourself and find the ones that really work well for you. That guy Adam Bloom that you talked about, his book is a great book, and it talks about rhythms, and it talks about kind of like those waveforms and how you're, you know, dynamically how your set goes. And so, like that's just as important of a book as my book, how to actually write the joke, because all of those are going to help you deliver your material better. Because that's the goal, right? Like the better you deliver your material, the more laughs you're bound to get.
Yeah, just because I've done on this journey the last year. So you know, my first set was just less than 10 months ago or whatever. But
Is that true? You've only been doing this for?
yeah, I did my first set in May 2023. So yeah,
Oh,
but
you're a lot.
I have a background in speaking, so I have you know,
Yeah, that I think
years of
that's what your
teaching in front
advantage.
of.
You're a professor and you're in front of people all the time. And when I was started, I was a MC at MGM Studios, and then at Universal Studios, I was in front of people every day for a living. Big
Huge
difference.
advantage.
Yeah, like I got good way faster than a lot of my contemporaries, because at least back then, because you know I just had so much more stage time.
That's what Steve Martin will say in his book. Yeah, he was doing, you know, magic since he was like 14 or whatever, and out to empty rooms.
Right? He's
But going back to
I was
the
gonna say his
writing,
advice. I just heard him say, be undeniably good at something. If you want to make it, that's all you got to do. Just be undeniably good at something, and that gets attention.
yeah,
I was like, oh, yeah, that's good advice, Steve.
that's
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah. Simple.
It's simple. Just be undeniably good at something. But he's like it's a lot better advice than it sounds, because you know if once you get to that level, you know it doesn't really matter about lucky breaks and this and that. You're just so good they can't deny it. Somebody's going to see you and go, I got to have more of that.
My first set, I guess I want to have a conversation of like even just getting your first set down on paper, where a lot of people think they want to do stand up, but they think that they need to spit out a perfect joke from their head, like whatever Athena's hatching the what Greek god came from Athena's brain, whatever. But like the set I did for my first set, it was the 15th edit. I had one day just gotten a really good flow, and I wrote 1,500 words, which is way too long. That's like 15 minutes of material. But then I chiseled and chiseled and rearranged and chiseled and incubated and slept on it and walked and thought about it and redid it and rewrote it. And it was like the 15th edit before I even went on stage with it.
Yeah.
And it got to 700 words.
And how did that
I don't
go?
know.
How was that first set?
It was decent because I had done it in front of friends first. I bombed, incubated it, found the lulls, found the callbacks that strengthened it. But I guess the biggest piece of advice for new people, I would say, is get the first draft down, because then it gives you the clay to start
Yeah.
chiseling. If you don't have first draft down, you have nothing to chisel.
Yeah,
You just have an
that's
empty.
true of any written art form. You know, anything that has words in it is you got to just barf them all out first, and that's I think a big draw or not. That holds a lot of people back, is what I was going to try to say.
Yes.
Is you think that you have to be perfect with your first draft. That's the mistake so many writers make, whether you're a fiction or nonfiction writer, a comedy writer, I mean, even artists. You think that the first thing you do has to be the finished product. You when you're an amateur, you think that that's how it goes. You don't know better, you know. And then I found out very early on, it's like, oh man, the first draft is just shit, and you have to be very comfortable and okay with creating shit. And that's hard, because most of us who are fans of comedy, most of us who want to be writers and are fans of writing or art or music, we have good taste. You know, ask us who we like and who we enjoy, and I guarantee you the writers and the artists and the musicians we list are really sophisticated and good, and so we're measuring ourselves up against that, and there's no way you can equal that. There's no way that that's ever going to happen on your first draft, and there's no way that any of those people that you admire did all of that what they do now in their first
Right.
draft. That you're watching, when you watch a Bill Burr hour special, you're watching the final set of his 1 year's worth of practice So his first draft was like 11 months prior to that. And then he honed it. And that's a guy who's a pro, a guy who's been doing it for decades. And he's going through that every time. So of course the rest of us have to go through that as well.
So you're saying wear your shit shoes when you write your first draft?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you got to wear your shit shoes just to be in the room with that first piece of turd. Yeah, that's the hard. Like I remember, like that was a big struggle, and then I remember my sister's an artist, and she showed me what artists do. They draw some whatever, they scribble out something, and then they put a piece of tracing paper over it, and then they trace the best parts of that drawing, and then remove the tracing paper and throw away the first piece of shit, and then they keep the good part, and then they add to the tracing, and then they trace that, and then they whatever's best out of that, and then they keep doing that until they have like a great version of that. And that's all writing is the same thing. You're just adding tracing paper on top and pulling out the parts you like, and then get rid of all the words that you don't want anymore. But you can't do that unless you throw a shit ton of clay on the wheel, as you say.
Is there some other things I noticed? Is there faux pas to not support the bar? Is it kind of shitty to go to an open mic every Friday and just grab a free water and
Oh,
not
you
like
mean that
support?
way? Well,
Yeah.
when you're a pro, like your job isn't to make money for the club through your liver, because typically pros drink for free. That's how it goes. You never pay for a drink once you're making a living at or typically maybe you get 3 or 4 free drinks or something, but usually you're not paying for your drinks. That's not your job. In the beginning, when you're at an open mic, it's not a bad idea once in a while to throw some money, like on a drink or on some food or whatever, because you want that open mic to be open, and you want it to be continuous. What I mean, you want it to stay open. So that's the best way to do that, is to tell your friends about it and get them to come in and watch. The best way to do that is to buy food. Like if you're going to buy lunch somewhere or dinner somewhere, buy it there and give, support that bar in that sense. But as far as what you owe them, like you're perfecting your craft on their stage. So there's a mutual, like you're giving each other something. They're giving you stage
Okay.
time and you're giving them entertainment, and neither of you is exchanging money for that. So that's to me where you're helping them. But yeah, I mean, if you're especially if you have a regular job and you have money and you're not like a broke open micer who's like just waiting for their gigs money to come in, for sure. Why did that last club I worked at say something to you about me not
This cheap ass.
my complimentary waters?
I just see that
That
the bar
Lucas
I go
man,
to.
he was way funnier when he was drinking.
But the bar I've done stand up at is like the booker is the bar owner, and he is a stand up, and so like you'd think you'd want to get in good graces with him by supporting the bar, yeah, not just
Yeah,
ordering
and
water and never buying anything.
and if you can afford that, it's like, of course. I mean, but your real job, like you can do him a even bigger favor by, when you're up on stage at some point, saying, don't forget to tip the wait staff. And hey, Jimmy, the owner of the bar here, he's been here for 5 years. I mean, tell your friends about this place. Let's get this place packed on Wednesdays, kind of a thing. Like anything you can do in that sense helps that owner, and they notice that stuff. Those little things really do help. I was just telling Tom Rhodes. Speaking of Tom Rhodes, used to have a joke. he probably still does it. It's so good. He, at the end of his set, while like the checks are being dropped, he's like, and don't forget to tip your wait staff. One of them's gonna have a baby. I made up my mind.
Pretty
And
good.
one of them would have a baby, and then people always clap. And
Oh
then he
yeah,
says, I made up my mind. And then it's just huge. And then, right then you can just hear the wallets opening up and people throwing an extra buck down. So it's like, those are things that really go a long way. If you want to work at a place over and over again, do that stuff for that club. I mean, it's like self-preservation, really.
yeah.
It goes without saying, be polite, be professional, don't heckle other comedians. I mean, there's so many tips for new people that are new at this that you can't really include it all in a top 10 list, but that list is at funnymuscle.com if anyone's interested in reading the rest of it.